Go ahead. This is the Nauvoo house.
Built in 1803, and that was built by a man named James White, and his son Hugh White was the one who sold the land here, and also the house. The back portion was built in 1841 by Joseph the Martyr. Not this wooden part; it's part in the back you can see. That was built in 1841 by Joseph the Martyr. And he put it on there because he didn't think it was quite big enough. He needed a lot more room. Joseph Smith III built this part on over here, and I'll take you inside in a little bit. Now, when we're inside, I'm going to ask you not to take any pictures, do any filming, or to pick up any of the artifacts. The artifacts are all very old, and some of them are very, very delicate. So try and keep them in as good a shape as possible. So that, and also the no filming and no photography is some legal problems we'd have with people doing documentaries and writing works where they don't go through the proper copyright procedures. So we've gotten a legal writ where it says that we can keep people from taking pictures and filming inside of it. So that's why we ask people not to do that. As a hotel. Well, in 1844, they rented that out to a man named Ebenezer Robinson. He ran it for some time. They leased it to him. And they leased out all the rooms except two. They didn't lease the kitchen room and the servants in the lovely kitchen room. That's where Joseph and Emma stayed at. You'll get to go through and I'll show you the rooms. And you'll see the rooms as it would have been in 1844, the way that they would have been running under Ebenezer Robinson. 1890, they took the hotel wing off, did a deterioration, and also a tree had fallen on it, so they had to get rid of it. They didn't want to have to pay to repair it, and they weren't using it enough to make it worthwhile, so they just got rid of the hotel wing. Do you have any questions before I go in? When she died, it was belonged to her sons, Alexander and David Hiram Smith ran it. Yeah. And they did that up until about 1870. Well, they had it, and in 1870, really, no one was using it for about 8 years before Emma died. And so it was just kind of sitting here, not very much was going on. Then 20 years later, it just kind of got taken apart, the hotel wing did.
Setting this camera on a bench arm right here at the Smith Family Cemetery, and I'm gonna go get myself on video by Joseph and Hiram's grave. So see you in a moment.
This is really an awesome place. The Mississippi River's just right here. But going on the RLDS tour, even though the sites are places where the prophet Joseph really was, and Emma and Hiram and all the Smith family, the tours just seem empty, like no spirit, no real feeling of place. It's sad, but it's sure neat to be here. It's awesome to see all these sights, be in this beautiful place.
somewhere, like right here. Right here. Sit there. Very hard. Very, very hard. Yeah, I lost. I lost. 10 million more pieces.
You can't do that. I know a trick you can do.
You lost.
I know something you can do. I know something.
Okay, Shem.
I know
Shem.
something you can do.
Not 4 left. Huh?
You're supposed to do that.
Huh?
Okay.
Get your fold and come on. Want to try it?
Wrap the string around your body. Like that, and then pull it. Like this, and then back down. Like this, then you'll walk. Pull it like this. Wrap it like that, and then pull it. Don't play with the block. Oh, too high. I want to use some still.
Down here, down on Granger Street, right there, where those trees are, is the Mississippi. And as I turn around towards Nauvoo, towards the city, you can see right there is where the temple is being built. Right up on the hill. There's the Pioneer Pastimes I was just at. Now we're heading down to the gun shop and some of the other sites. John Taylor's home and some of the rest of the stuff. I think, oh, I don't know what that one is.
Oh yeah. That's a good one.
Watch these guys. They didn't start out right. What you do, you put it down.
You have to leave it how you try to hit my guy. Try to hit those two guys. They're good.
Yeah, you moved
Now
that.
these guys, Jake is the person. Daniel, Jake's the person. They're hard to hit. And it doesn't matter. Try to get my side. Try to get me. Try to get those two. Jake plays the winner. See, I told you they're hard to hit. There's corners, that's why.
How are we doing over here? Hey, you're doing a good job there.
See, I told you it'll go through a lot. So I'll try to get
Are we going in any of these places? No, do you want to go into any of these places? There's a brick.
But I'm impressed that the church gave her the home, the carriage, the harness, and a span of horses. So they wanted to care for her and they loved her. And she planned to go west. She just had hoped that she could go when it was a little more civilized, and then she just got too.
Peace and
The ash hopper is how they made lye out of ashes. They would put a foot or two of straw in the bottom and then dump their ashes on the top. As rainwater would leach through, it would leach out the lye, but it was very weak. So they had to boil it till it was condensed enough to float an egg.
huh.
Now when I make pickles, I know that I have to cure the cucumbers, I have to put salt in till I can float an egg, and that's the right salt solution to cure pickles. And so it was kind of the same idea. Just condense enough so you can float an egg, and then your lye is strong enough.
What's that, a raw egg or a hard-boiled egg or a peeled
Raw
hard?
egg.
Raw egg,
Right.
okay.
Then to their fat, every bit of fat they had, they boiled in water. Then let it cool and scrape that white fat off the top. That way it didn't become rancid. 2 parts of fat and 1 part of lye makes it.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
2 parts of fat, 1 part of lye. And I've heard President Faust in conference talking about how he's so grateful for sweet-smelling soap because he hated that soap that they made during the Depression. And then the fat in the fabric, I think, is what enables the water to be more effective. I'm
But
not sure.
it's a good soap. But the lady that had read a book about it just barely told me the day before yesterday, and I've never heard this before. They found this as they sacrificed animals, and as they had the ashes and then the fat from the animal, they touched that so there was a light.
Yeah, they used to have it right out here. That big old shed.
Hey, Robbie, Mom told me to tell you you might want to go in there because your favorite lady's in there. Got crazy ladies from last night. And you can bring some.
We call it. Now, we don't know whether, there was actually 7 brickyards in this area in 1840, 2 down here, and 5 up on the bluff. We don't know whether or not this is the exact location for it, but we do know that it was along this road somewhere. And so we say, yeah, this is one of the brickyards that was down here. You know, nobody can prove different, so we'll just say that. Now, in these 7 brickyards, in the last 2 years that they were making bricks here, they made over 4 million bricks a year. And that's a lot of bricks, but that was only the last 2 years that they were here. Now let's go back to the beginning. In 1839, Joseph Smith bought this land. He bought this land, and it was the city of commerce when he bought it. He renamed it to Nauvoo, which means a beautiful place. Now, the interesting thing about it is where we're sitting right now was a swamp. This whole area here was a swamp, and yet he bought it and named it a beautiful place. And so he drained that swamp, though. He did it by digging a ditch right along the bottom edge of that bluff up there that goes along the edge of the bluff and runs right down into the Mississippi River. That caught the water that was coming down here and making this into swamp, into a swamp and sent it right out to the Mississippi. And in about a year or so, this place had dried up sufficiently so people could settle here. Now, when it was dried up so they could settle, they subdivided this area into 4-acre blocks, and then further subdivided it into 1-acre lots. And it looks like I'm going to stop for a minute because there's going to be some more people come, and I'll get them all at once. Okay, now, where was it? Okay, they subdivided into 4-acre blocks, and then subdivided those into 1-acre lots and started selling those lots. And when they started selling those lots, people started moving in here from the east. They were from the east, and also a great many people from England. And in those places, they had beautiful brick homes, and many of them were brick makers. Many of them were brick masons, and they loved bricks. To them, it was a sign of beauty. It was a sign of permanency, and it was a sign of a culture that they knew and loved. And so when they got here, they said, hey, we would like to have that same thing here. We could make Nauvoo a beautiful place if we could have brick homes. And so they said, let's see if we can make bricks here. So they started looking for the material to make bricks. They knew from experience that to make a good waterproof brick, they needed a formula of 4 parts of good brick clay to 1 part of sand and enough water to make a thick dough. And this is the clay that they found here. It's in a pit about north and west, east of the temple up there. There's a huge, huge field of just beautiful clay like this. Now this clay has something in it that is unique to Nauvoo, and that is it has iron oxide in it. That iron oxide in that clay is the material that, when this is in a brick and heated to 2100 degrees, the sand melts and combines with that iron oxide, which gives this Nauvoo brick its red color. That's where we get that color from. The more heat you get, the darker the brick. So, now, we have the sand, the clay, and the water. So they say, let's make bricks. On them, they'd hook a horse to the end of those paddles, and they would then, it would go round and round and round and round, and when they got done, they would have dough mix there that was about right for mixing a brick, making a brick, throwing a brick actually. So they would take and they would put a mold alongside of the pond there. Now we'll talk molds. This is a single mold. They would never use a single mold. They would use a gang mold, 4, maybe 6 molds, all hooked together. Before they would throw any dough into this, they would dip it in water. The water was the parting compound. They didn't want the dough to stick to the wood, and that water prevented that. And so they'd dip them in water. Then they would get in jump in that pond there of dough and take a piece of dough about the size of a football and throw it into those wet molds. Now when they got done throwing it into the molds, they would take a hammer like this and they would pound it down in every mold. They did that for 2 reasons. One, to make sure it fit the mold properly, and the other one was to make sure there was no bubbles in it. Because if there was bubbles in that dough, when they put it in the kiln, it would heat the bubbles, the air bubbles, and it would blow the brick out. And so they pounded it down really good. Now, once they had that done, then they had a thing like this. This is a brick cutter. They would trim it along the top of the mold, cut the top off so it would be the right height, throw the excess back in the pond, and then they would be ready to go on with their making the brick. Now, they would then let this sit for a little while, and then they would take it off, lift it up, because they had put the parting compound in it, and there would be laying their beautiful adobe brick. Now this is a dried adobe brick. It has this characteristic, that is, it is not waterproof. If we were to lay this out somewhere where it was exposed to water for a couple of days, it would melt back to sand, clay, and water. So they took these adobe bricks, and they would, when they could, so that they could move them, they'd set them on their edge and start them to dry. Like this. It took 2 weeks to dry them before they went in the kiln. And when they did, they'd have to go out and turn them about every 3 days. Turn these bricks every 3 days. And they did this because of this. Now, a basic thing about making bricks, and that is, as this sand, clay, and water brick dries, it shrinks. And when you put it in a kiln and cook it to make a waterproof brick out of it, it further shrinks considerably further than it does when it's just sand, clay, and water. And that shrinkage is something that's very important in this. Now, as they let this dry, it shrinks from the top down. Now that means that up here, this is shrinking. Down here, this is still wet, and so it's larger. And so they have to turn them, or else they'll make a misshapen brick, like a banana probably. And so they turn them. What a job that must have been. Now, after about 2 weeks out here drying in the sun, that brick is ready to put in a kiln. Now we'll talk kilns for a minute. In this area at this time, they had kilns that burned about 10,000 bricks. But let's talk about houses. This house over here, this Kimball house, what is it, Sarah Kimball Smith or whatever his name is?
Lucy Mack.
That's Lucy Mack Smith, yeah. That Lucy Mack Smith house has 42,000 bricks in it. The Brigham Young house has over 100,000 bricks. Wilford Woodruff's house has 60,000 bricks. And when you're talking 10,000 bricks at a burn, you see you can't support a building industry like was going on at that time. So they went to a different type of kiln, and it's called a field kiln. Now, a field kiln will actually, the ones they use would actually hold between 100,000 and 200,000 bricks at a burn. And the way they would do it is this. They would take these fine adobe bricks that they had made, and they'd stand them up tic-tac-toe style like this, you know. They'd stand them up, and that's so that they do that so that air could flow in them. When they were starting to cook them, air could flow in there and cure the entire brick. And they would stack these up about 20 bricks high, 20 big adobe bricks high. Then, when they had them 20 bricks high, the last course that they put on this kiln, they put in like so, you know. Just they'd till them, run it all over and around down the other side, and then they'd mud in this crack here, so that they would have a sealed kiln that would be shaped like this. It would be shaped with a round like that, and then they would mud in all the cracks. And now we've got a sealed kiln. It'd have a chimney on one end, a firebox on the other. If it was a long one, there'd be a firebox on the end, plus all along it they'd have fireboxes, but we don't know how often they'd have to be placed. Now we have the bricks in a kiln. It's a sealed kiln, but when we fire them, how are we going to tell when they're done? This is what they knew. They took what they knew and got from that information what they needed to know what they needed to know. They knew that an adobe brick that went into that kiln was that big. Now we're talking shrinkage again. They knew that the brick that they wanted out of that kiln, which was a good, waterproof brick that would last them years and years and years, and hundreds of years if they used it, was about that big. In other words, it had shrunk about a ½ inch of brick. So they used that information to tell when these bricks in this kiln were done. What they would do is they'd take and they would stick a rod right on down through the top of the kiln. You can see there's a little one showing on this here picture here. But that rod would stick down and sit right on top of the 20th brick. And when they'd start to fire that rod, you know, would be sticking up about 10 inches. When they started to firing it, it'd start shrinking those bricks. And when it started shrinking, that rod would start to go down because the bricks under it are shrinking. And when that rod went down 10 inches, they know that the 20 bricks that they put underneath that had shrunk a ½ inch a piece. And they'd let the fires go out, and then they could go home and spend 4 nights with their family. Because it took 4 days for that kiln to cool. Now, once that kiln was cool, we got bricks to sell. Now, if I was going to buy bricks in that period to build my house, I'd come into the brickyard and I'd say, okay, I need 65,000 bricks to build my house. And the man would look at me and think for a minute, and then they'd say, okay, you need 72 feet of my kiln. A big long one here. You need 72 feet of my kiln. And so he would mark off from right there, right down to there, 72 feet. Every brick from there to there was yours. You was responsible to take those bricks, every one of them, put them in your wagon, take them home, and sort them out to be used to build your
Okay, this is the blacksmith part of this facility. I don't know, Elder Curtis mentioned that this entire building originally in the 1840s and 1843 was built and operated by 5 Webb brothers. They were the ones who were wainwrights, they were wheelwrights, and they were blacksmiths and farriers. And they operated this facility, but only for a period of just 3 short years. By the year 1846, most of the people had left Nauvoo and gone west to the Rocky Mountains, and the Webb brothers stayed here until most of the people had their wagons made. The majority of people had exited from Nauvoo by late May of 1846. And they had accumulated a lot of blacksmith tools over the years, had quite a collection. In fact, they had 2 ancestors, 2 brothers who lived here in Nauvoo in the 1840s, and they had operated a blacksmith shop here in Nauvoo. So the Ship family had all this equipment, tools. They came to Nauvoo Restoration and said, we would like some of these tools we have, but Nauvoo Restoration said, do that. So they contributed and donated to this restoration several things. I think the most significant is this old bellows that operates this forge. Still works, and that bellows was part of the Shute family collection. They also, some of you, I think you can all see, there's an old anvil over here on a wooden block. That was also part of that family collection, as well as these 2 bench vices here and some of the tools, tongs and so forth that we see here. So they made quite a contribution to this, the restoration of this shop.
As soon as we got home, as soon as we get that, we're going to sit on the wood lathe. The wood lathe, small one. Just like a little old coin.
Does anybody know why blacksmiths were called blacksmiths? Yes.
They were turned black.
They got pretty dirty. That's not the reason, but it's a good answer. The people who worked with various kinds of metals were called smiths, or smiths. They would smite something. The smiths who worked with iron eventually learned how to blacken metal to make it have a black coating. So that's where the name blacksmiths come from, because they learned how to put this black coating on the metal products that they make. One of the things that they used to do that originally was not going to use that today. We are going to blacken this little shoe, but we don't use that product.
They're still there.
If you look up above you here from the ceiling, there's all kinds of metal objects that are here. That's just that's an example of some of the kinds of things that the blacksmiths would have made for the community here in Nauvoo. You can see there's some chains up there. Each one of those links in a chain would have to be forged by the blacksmith, then fastened together into a chain. There's some neat hooks, candle holder, hinges for gates and so forth. This is what we call 1940 refrigerator. It's because they would put food products in this metal bucket, lower it down in a well that was nice and cool, suspend it on a rope just above the water, and that would be a place where they could keep the products cool. Kind of a neat idea.
Fellow has two spokes. So now we got to make our fellows and our spokes.
Outside this door, up above there, there's a sign that says blacksmith and farrier. Who knows what a farrier is? That's a person that puts shoes on horses. It's a person that does that. So they were involved here, of course, in making shoes and shoeing horses, as well as all the other kinds of things that they made out of metal.
And the seaboard, they crossed the Mississippi River on ice and then go on to the Missouri River, crossed it on ice and stayed in North Omaha area, that same river?
No, well,
A drawn ice?
that's partially what you say is correct. On the 4th of February, 1846, the battalion was formed at Council Bluffs, and a contingent of 500 men to fight in the Mexican-American War. They never did have to fight. They went to California and came back to Utah. Now we're going to...
As a school teacher, I like to get the facts right.
I appreciate that. I hope that I can give you good information.
That's great. Now we've got a loop.
This little shoe, we're going to blacken. And I mentioned that that's where the name blacksmith came from. We're going to just knock off some sharp points here first.
How do you get it stretched? You don't have any idea how you make that wheel bigger?
Now what we use to blacken metal today is a used product. But it doesn't come from a horse, it comes from an automobile, an engine. It's used crankcase oil. And we'll put this in there,
Going to be on a bench like
and
this.
that will give this a black coating.
Pick it up with the tongs out of the fire. Get it on top. Now it's off ender. This real iron piece is going to be a lot bigger. It's going to be able to fit right on top. Get a couple buckets of water after
To
it's on.
just maintain authenticity, we have some 1840 paper towel here. We used to dry this off with. Well, you laugh, but we can go to the store and buy a case of this paper for $18.40.
This is Warsaw. I'm looking at the actual building where the Warsaw Signal was printed, an anti-Mormon newspaper. Thomas Sharp, editor. He instigated a lot of anti-Mormon activity. This is the home, the place, I guess it used to be a bar, where they came to celebrate after having killed Joseph and Hiram. Besides Nauvoo, there were a lot of other little developments of saints. This was one of them, where Isaac Morley, many other saints lived, and there's a dog who's about to attack me. Hi, doggy. This is one of the first places where the mobs came and destroyed the settlement, set fire to them. This is a little settlement called Ramus, where we get what came to be known as Section 130 and 131.
Where there was a chapel.
Here in Ramus, we are near the spot where there was one of the first meeting houses in this time. Nauvoo never really had meeting houses. They just met outdoors and in other residences.
Where are they all now? Really?
So do you run the young farmers as well?
So are you a president? Or do you just
That's our dungeon, and we'll go up there and visit in just a few minutes. The windows on the top floor were a children's bedroom. This truly was built as a jail house. There was a jailer, his wife, and 7 children lived right in there with the prisoners. This little attachment here is called a summer kitchen. It was built in the 1850s, and it was built because when you cooked in the summertime, you would make your home hot, so you could cook out there and then keep it cooler. It's kind of like when we barbecue out on our patios, we keep our house cool. Well, they had a little house to do it in. This served as a jail for about 25 years, and then they built a new one here in the county. So they finally sold it to a family by the name of Browning. And they didn't want to live in a jailhouse, so they remodeled it. They put bedrooms where the cells were, and they moved the little summer kitchen back, made a smokehouse, added more rooms to the side, and had a lovely home to live in. Well, they lived here for about 30 years, and then Mr. Browning passed away. The children were all raised, and so Mrs. Browning decided she'd like to sell her home. She got thinking about over the years, she'd had some church members come by, wanted to see the bedroom where the prophet and Hiram were killed, so she would take them up and show them the room. So she thought perhaps maybe the church would like to purchase it. So in 1903, they did purchase the home, and it served as a rental property for several years. And then in 1938, the church decided they'd like to restore it back to the way it looked in the 1840s. So they have furnished it to look at that time period. None of the furnishings are original, but there are things in the jail that are original, and I will point these out to you as we go through. Parlor, and their winter kitchen, and their guest bedroom. If you were a guest at the Steebles in the 1840s, you might have slept down here because they didn't have a lot of extra bedrooms. I would have enjoyed that because I could have had this seems to help me.
That's the what?
That's the beams.
The beams of the day.
There's no digging through this floor.
No escape.
Frightened away and didn't come back, so their lives were spared. We could have a little, anyway, they think they might have. That's why it's special. Ended up the afternoon of the martyrdom, the 4 of them. This is an original floor. Some of you may have come through before when there was blood on the floor, or some of your friends may have. They say that it was painted Come on.
June 27, 1844, dawned cloudy and wet in Carthage. By mid-morning, the air was hot and humid. The prisoners received a few visitors. They also read, conversed, and wrote letters. Joseph wrote to his wife.
Dear Emma, I am very much resigned to my lot, knowing I am justified and have done the best that could be done. Give my love to the children and all my friends, and may God bless you all.
By afternoon, the mood grew somber. Joseph asked John Taylor to sing a favorite hymn.
Poor wayfaring man of grief hath often crossed me on my way, who stood so humbly for relief that I could never answer nay. I had not power to ask his name, where to he went, or whence he came. Yet there was something in his eye that won my love, I knew not why.
I'll wait till you're here coming. I think I better move that keyboard. They knocked it off.
And here in Council Bluffs, Iowa, formerly Canesville to the Saints. They built the tabernacle on this site. This is a replica of it. After Brigham Young left winter quarters and went to the Salt Lake Valley, he came back here, and on December 27, 1847, this is where he was sustained as the second president of the church. This is also where Section 136 was given, as the Saints were to move west and organize into companies. Now, at this place, they have monuments with Living Christ testimony, the organization of the First Presidency, and the proclamation to the world on the family. Speaking of the family, there's a statue here called The Family and Everlasting Heritage. Statue of Henry Miller. We're going into the tabernacle now.
That's a pretty authentic covered wagon, incidentally.
Yes. About 150 years old. The carriage is pretty obviously well worn. The box apparently was used on another carriage to go west in 1997. I'm not sure the sisters would let that cover be so dirty though.
Not if they had a choice.
One of the journals that I read that the sister described her washing one day, it was like 6 wool blankets and 4 ticks, the covers for the 4 ticks, and it was normal washing. But then she included the tent in the wagon cover.